Well, hello everyone and welcome to my latest video, today sponsored by the letter W. Anyway, let's get this out of the way and take a look at what I'm sure you're all here to see, which is the latest in Maketoys or Makeyoys, however you prefer to say that. I prefer Maketoys just because it makes a hell of a lot more sense than Makeyoys. Anyway, the latest in their Seeker line, the first of their cone heads, and that is MTRM-15 Endgame, their version of a masterpiece scaled dirge. Now, as with quite a few other people, I wasn't sure this would ever see the light of day, to be honest. They went very quiet for an awful long time, and I was concerned that they'd maybe decided to call it a day, but no, here we are. He's finally here, and I have it on good authority that the remaining two cone heads are due at some point either at the tail end of this year or more likely the sort of first quarter next year. I've heard conflicting reports of December and April. My money's on April. Maybe April 2021, the way that Maketoys have been in the past. Anyway, we have our first cone head, so we should be thankful for that. And I've literally just got this guy. I haven't had a look at it at all, really. I've taken it out of the box so that I could, get it ready for this video, but that's as far as I've got. So you guys are going to be looking at it at the same time as I am. Going to be having the first impressions and all that good stuff. Anyway, so let's start by just taking a quick look at the box, just for the sake of thoroughness. And as you can see, it's pretty similar to the ones that came with Meteor, Lightning and Skycrow. Got a nice picture of the product on the front there. It's pretty similar on the side, nothing too exciting. On the back we've got product shots, as you'd expect. It shows off the various features of the figure. You've got the different configurations you can have for his weapons and the alternate face sculpts, and on the top just more pictures of dirgy goodness, and again the bottom you get a product shot there showing everything that you get with the figure. Okay, let's get rid of that for now, and let's bring in the stuff that we actually get with the figure inside the package. So we get the obligatory instruction manual, which is, I believe, full colour. And we also get the wing fillers for Starscream for their Meteor, which is something I've been waiting for. I think you get a set of stickers for affixing those as well. But from what I've heard, these will stay in fairly securely without these stickers, so I'm probably going to try them without. Moving on, we get the clamshell. You get a bunch of additional stuff with him. First off, you get these. I'll try and make this focus a bit better. You get these short missiles for his alt mode, and they plug into the cannons that come with him. You also get these more G1 accurate missiles, although Dirge actually had sort of longer, thinner concussion missiles, if I remember, from the G1 toy. But yeah, anyway, it's nice to have an option there. And you also get a number of face sculpts. Now, I've previously taken a look at these, but I'll give you a quick close-up. Now, apologies if these don't show up quite as well as I'd hope on camera. First up, we've got what I guess is a surprised face. Either that or, he owes money to someone and he's doing sexual favours. We also have, if that will focus, which it's steadfastly refusing not to. We have a laughing stroke smirking face, a kind of a maniacal grin there, which looks pretty cool, I have to say. Here we have his, what I guess can be described as his worried face, sad face. Again, nice sculpt there. And here we have a full-on frowny face, which again looks very effective. I guess that's probably the closest thing to a neutral face that you get with him. Anyway, that's everything that you get in terms of accessories. I'll just pop those back, and once I've done that, we'll bring the figure itself in and take a quick look at it. Okay, so here you go, we're back with MTRM-15 Endgame, and yeah, first impressions are quite good actually. It looks the part. I do like the way that they've modified the mould, the existing G1 Seeker mould. You now have the slightly larger knee pads, which are tune accurate. And you have the sort of silver metallic cockpit instead of the different colours that we, the more golden hues that we got with the G1 Seekers, or sorry, the Season 1 Seekers. We still have the familiar weapons on the side. Now they're not null rays, only Starscream had null rays, but they have the same gimmick. They're on that armature that allows them to come out, and of course, as I mentioned before, the tips of these can be removed and you can replace them with the smaller ones for the alt mode. And he also comes with, well, a cone head. And that's a pretty nice face sculpt on there as well. I'll just bring that in a bit closer just to show it off if I can. It's a bit tricky with the way my camera is, but yeah, that's a maniacal smirk there as well. So kind of a laughing face. That's pretty good. Initial thoughts about the deco are that yeah, it looks pretty cartoon accurate. You'll probably, or the keen eyes, or the keener-eyed amongst you will notice that I've got him mistransformed at the moment. Now that's actually on purpose, because the figure itself, when you transform it according to the instructions, isn't tune accurate. And that's because these wings here, these secondary wings, are designed to sit up at the back and clip in here, which of course isn't tune accurate. Now we know that Dirge had lower wings with these smaller wings atop those, and you can achieve that look, as you can see, not entirely effectively. There's, it does kind of limit articulation a bit, and it doesn't look entirely correct. But just by unclipping them and moving them down on this hinge at the back there, you can sort of achieve the same look. One other thing I noticed while bringing him across to pose him is that this piece here, which was on a C-clip on the original 3 Seekers, appears to be integrated now. Now, I've got a fuzzy memory because I wasn't really interested in the Sunstorm, but I think that was the case with the Sunstorm they did. Now, I guess that's good in some ways because that was always falling off on the original Seekers, and it was quite annoying. But I like the fact that you could remove it, because I took them off of mine and closed the back sections up to have a much cleaner back. So if you can't remove it on this, that's actually a bit of a downside to my mind, because that's what I was planning to do. I was just going to take that entire nose cone section off for bot mode, close those flaps and have a much cleaner back. But as it is, the main reason I did that on the first ones was because it kept falling off. I don't really pose my figures with the back showing, so the fact that it doesn't clean up quite as well isn't as much of an issue to me as it could be. And to be fair, it also helps to differentiate the cone heads from the original Season 1 Seekers. So I don't hate that, but it would have been nice to have the option, not have it decided for me. Anyway, so let's give you a quick 360 of the figure. And as you can see, the mould is, for all intents and purposes, the same as Meteor, Lightning and Skycrow, just with a few minor revisions. Now, you've got, if I go through it quickly through our sort of articulation comparison, you've got the same articulation. You've got the toe tilt there, sorry, the ankle tilt, which has got about the same range of motion. You have the same ratcheted toes, which can pivot there, and they're also on a secondary ratchet, so they can go up and down as well as pivot. You have friction jointed knees, which have got a pretty good range of motion. They go all the way back to there, sort of hindered a bit by his wings, but they're pretty good. You have friction on the hip joint as well. It's quite stiff, and that can go all the way out to the side there, and all the way out to the front. If you move the hip skirt out of the way, you can get a pretty, or I would imagine you would be able to, because you could on the first ones, you get a pretty good range of motion out of that, so almost 90. These larger knee pads that he has do kind of interfere a little bit, hinder that, but not too bad. What else can I say about him at first glance? I did notice that the chest piece here doesn't look to align as well. So on my my original 3, that piece there sits flush with the cockpit. So you push that chest down and in, compress it as it is there, and then it should sit flush. But as you can see there, or hopefully you can see there, there's actually a bit of a gap between that and that. Excuse me. So yeah, that's not great. I don't know if that's something I can tweak and play around with, but as it stands, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that gap, and it's not because I have it mistransformed. This came out of the box like that, and it doesn't go any further back in the chest, so there's not really anything we can do there to make that better. So I think that's just how it is, unfortunately. It sits further back at the bottom instead of sitting flush, unless I haven't pulled that forward, but I can't see any way that I can pull that piece forward. If I open it up there, it doesn't look like it can move. It feels integral to the hip skirt. Now the hip skirt's down where it should be. It does pop up, but when you pop it up, that reveals apologies for that. I had to pause things there because I had another coughing fit, obviously not drinking enough wine. Anyway, as I was saying, that piece, when you do that, it comes up and reveals this section here, which is obviously not meant to be visible. Although when you do it, then if I put this back together, it does sit slightly more flush, but still not the way that the original 3 figures do. So that is slightly annoying. I mean, that's pretty poorly toleranced, and it should be all the way down and clip in there. That's where it should be. It obviously clips in. That's how it feels. So there you can see there's quite a big gap. Unless you push that torso right down, that doesn't really work as well as it should. So that's not great, I have to say. One other thing that did happen while I was off camera there was that these hip skirts, one of them popped off. They do seem to be quite loose and come off. And indeed, one of these side skirts also popped off while I was playing around with it. So that's slightly annoying. Anyway, let's get back to the articulation checklist. So the arms are the same as they were before. So you've got a 360 there on friction. They can go out that far. You've got reasonable range of motion. You have a double jointed elbow there, which gets almost up to a full 90 bend, and you have the wrist that can rotate 360. Now the fingers have all, you have 4 fingers pinned there on a base pin, and then you have one individually articulated finger which has 2 pins at the base and at the knuckle there. So you can do pointing poses with him if you so desire. Now you still have the gaps in the forearms there, which was a problem with the original 3 Seekers. You have obviously, as I've already shown, the articulation in the guns if you want, and you do, I guess, because of the way the figure works, you can get an ab crunch out of him by doing this. Not much, but obviously there's quite a big hinge in there, so if you maneuver it, you can get a bit more out of it there, and he can look down and back, but it does make the gap there a bit more obvious. I say that crotch piece is not good on this one, I have to say. Moving on to the head, that's on a ball. Oh, there we go. Apparently it's on a very loose ball, because now we have Dirge's floating head. It does pop back on fairly easy, but yeah, that came off super easy. I barely put any pressure on that at all. Literally just made it look up, forward, and there you go, it's popped off again. So that's not great. But yeah, I guess it offers roughly the same articulation as the first 3 Seekers, but I will say that in hand the QC doesn't feel up to the standard of those. Now from what I've read, I should say, I've heard quite a few people had issues with their releases of Skycrow and Lightning. Now I had the original run of Meteor, and I got the original Skycrow and Lightning as well. It wasn't a reissue or anything. Now my Meteor was pretty rock solid, I have to say. Skycrow and Lightning not quite as good, but not as bad as a lot of people seem to have been. I didn't have any major issues with them. So comparing them to this, I would say that they are definitely more solid than this is, to the point where the joints creak and squeak a little bit on them, whereas this doesn't, but it feels a little bit loose in places. And as I say, some of those tolerances, just looking first off, I'm a little bit concerned that you know, this for example, this is really bugging me, where that now doesn't sit flush, especially because this figure was actually recalled to fix a QC issue, which I believe was to do with the alt mode, where the head wouldn't tab in properly, or the cockpit wouldn't tab together properly due to where the head sat. But that there is, I think, just as bad. You know, that's a big gap that doesn't exist on the others, and it's kind of strange. I'm just sort of taking a look at the packaging, and yeah, on the packaging, that's not an issue. It does sit flush. So I don't know. Perhaps I haven't got it right. Maybe I haven't figured out the assembly inside of the hips there. Maybe I haven't got the joint properly situated. But it doesn't feel like it's got any more give in it. So I can't really see how else I could do it. But obviously, if I do figure it out through the course of this video or afterwards, I'll do a follow-on video or an update. Anyway, I'll just show you briefly what the wings look like in their stock position, how Maketoys tell you to have them. So again, much like the original Seekers, you'll see there are tabs here on the back, and there are tabs on these sections. Now they're on a double hinge, so you just push these up like this, and they will clip in. They will clip in, he says, to these tabs. Not the easiest to get in there. It does feel a little bit like it's not sitting flush. There we go, that's one, and then we'll try the other one, get that secondary hinge up there and pop that in as well. So this is how Maketoys tell you to have the wings. I mean, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it looks quite good, to be honest, but it isn't animation accurate. And early pictures of this figure, the prototype, had the wings situated down there. So they obviously decided to modify the design between prototype and release. But it is good that you know, obviously you get more range of motion in the legs with them up in that position, but they do limit the articulation of the arms somewhat, as did the original Seekers having the wings in that position. You'll see now, having just moved that like that, that's caused that to disengage already. So there's actually an advantage in having them mistransformed and just hanging there, because you know you're still going to be able to get the legs in most poses you want, and you get more range of motion with the arms, and of course it's more animation accurate. Anyway, so I'm not going to do the full transformation video because the transformation is going to be pretty much identical to the previous Seekers, and there are lots of videos out there showing that. But what I will do is transform it into its alt mode, so we can have a look at that and see how it looks. So give me a few minutes and I'll be right back with a look at Dirge's alt mode. Okay, and we're back now with the alt mode. And yeah, I mean, first impressions, now it's all transformed, are pretty favourable. Aesthetically, I really like it. I think it's a great looking interpretation of Dirge. As you can see, you know, it's pretty faithful to the animation model, both in colour and design. You've got a nice array of weapons on the bottom there. You've got dual bomb racks there, so you've got the larger missiles and the smaller ones there. With those obviously are the adjustable things with the smaller attachments. You have the landing gear that you had before with the first three Seekers, molded plastic, so there's no movement in those wheels, so it won't roll, I'm afraid. But yeah, it looks quite nice. It will sit happily on the landing gear, and it's fairly stable. Things I noticed from the transformation: the tolerances are pretty tight, and there are some issues. Now, the hip skirt again popped off, and the side skirt popped off. The side skirt numerous times, I have to say, which was quite irritating. The head was a bit tricky to get, or the cone head was tricky to get into there. Once I did it, it was okay, but it clipped together reasonably well, but it wasn't completely intuitive to get it done. The worst bit probably is to do with the central hinge. Now again, the alignment looks off, so instead of it being completely flat like that, it seems to be sort of bent one way or the other. So trying to get the body straight and all of these panels flush was quite difficult. Now that's a bit of an oversight if that happens to be. I mean, it could just be my copy, I guess, but it looks like it's part of the design, so I'm slightly concerned about that. There were also a few sort of hair-raising moments trying to get these wings together, because there are some very small tabs that go into some very small notches, and they look like they could stress, in fact maybe already are stressing, and could snap off quite easily, certainly after repeated transformations. But on the whole, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't much more annoying than the original three Seekers, and I like the outcome. I think I always liked the original three Seekers. I thought they looked great in jet mode. Much better all round in terms of bot and jet than Takara's were. I mean, Takara's jets look great, but the bot modes were trash, to be honest. This is better. This mold is better all round. I say this cockpit, it does sit together, but it is quite prone to popping. You know, if you move it like that, as you'll see, it all unclips. It's not great, and it can be a bit annoying to get back together because of the way it sits. As you can see, it's now just decided it doesn't want to go back together at all, so I've got to mess around with that now. Yeah, I can see why they recalled this to fix on the, you know, to mess around with the tolerances, because it doesn't work perfectly, and it's to do with that cone head being in there. And I mean, this has just never been the best design for this cockpit. Now you can see, now it's all, I shouldn't have done that really, because I had it all working, and now I've messed it up, and it's being silly. But I mean, you get the idea. It was all clipped together, and yeah, there we go. It's mostly back together. For the purposes of this video, it will do. Oh no, now it's just falling apart. Okay, well this is indicative of what I was saying when I was putting it together, that it does feel a bit off, the tolerances, or they do feel a bit off, I should say. But I mean, the transformation is as intuitive as it was before. The wing pieces here, they're on a sliding mechanism, so they all pretty obviously, I didn't even have to reference the instructions to do it. You just kind of figure out that bits pop into each other and those are out on a hinge, etc. And they all, you know, it's, as I say, it's quite intuitive. You could do it if you're used to the mold, you could do it without any issue. Let's just pop the landing gear away there just to show you that does stow away nicely. These are quite stiff down the bottom. Very, very stiff, in fact. Excuse me. There we go. Finally got that one in. But yeah, again, trying to get it clipped back in now, it's proving a little bit difficult, and I think it's because obviously I've unclipped it after I've done the other bits. There you go, I've got it back in now. So now you can see it's sitting flush, but you know, that's more effort than should be required really to do that in my mind. You know, that aside, I mean, there were tolerance issues with the first three Seekers. This is probably worse on balance, but the alt mode is worth it. It does look really, really nice. I'll give you a 360 view of it there. I do like the fact that it doesn't have the tail fins on it, which were very wobbly on the original three. So you have a much cleaner back there, and then you have the nice rigid tail fins on those. Yeah, I guess there's not much more to say about the jet mode. You know what Dirge looks like. This looks like Dirge, and if the other two, Ramjet and Thrust, are anywhere near as nice looking as this, then they'll tick all of the aesthetic boxes for me. But it's just that the transformation is not quite as good as it could be. As you can see now, there's this bit's popping out here underneath this because it's not quite level. And again, they're very small tabs. I don't know if I want to force that in. It does go in. There you go, it's in again now, but it does feel like it could break. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, I know this isn't the appropriate part of the review, but I forgot to mention that, like the original versions, it does have a waist swivel. I just forgot to show that off, and it is quite tight, but it did again make the side skirt fly across the room when I did it. Anyway, that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. It's a nice enough attempt at Dirge. I think it looks the part aesthetically. I'm very happy with it in both modes. It's just those little things, that little attention to detail, the QC, the tolerances, they're still not where they need to be. And after reading about the solar flare issues, lots of people have problems with that. Yeah, this probably, I probably should have expected it, but they do seem to have made strides since that crowdfunded debacle. The paint on this is still good. You know, there's no major issues with the joints. I mean, there are a few things that pop off, but they can easily be pushed back on. I would recommend taking care with some of the tabs because they are quite small, as I said, but that applies to a lot of transformers. Yeah, I would recommend this definitely if you're a fan of the cone heads, or you just want to bolster your Decepticon ranks. I mean, that's the primary reason I'm getting these. I liked all of the Seekers when I was younger. My particular favourite, my personal favourite I should say, was Thrust, so I'm really looking forward to that one. I think Dirge was probably my least favourite of the cone heads actually. I think it was Thrust, Ramjet and then Dirge. But I still think it's a nice enough mould, so I will probably like the other two even more, I think. I prefer the jet modes of both of those and the coloration as well, so I'm looking forward to them. This is a good place to start. I hope that by the time the other two roll around, they've ironed out some of the tolerance and QC issues, and we get something that is more akin to the first three Seekers than the crowdfunded one. I'm not quite sure what they fixed in the recall. If it was this piece, then yes, that did clip together reasonably well. If it was this piece down here, then no, they didn't fix it, because that's still a problem. Again, that could just be mine. I guess we'll have to wait until there are a lot more videos or in-hand reviews from people who have the figure to figure out if it's a common issue. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to cut this one a little bit shorter than usual, because I don't really have too much more to say about it. Dirge was never a favourite character. But I hope you've enjoyed this short look at the figure anyway, and I hope it helps you make an informed purchasing decision. And I think this is probably going to be the last review I do before the end of the year, certainly of new figures. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover that's in my collection that you know about, let me know and I'll take a quick look at it if I can. But I don't think MP47 Hound's going to drop this side of Christmas. Even if it does, it probably won't arrive before New Year. So I think this rounds up my reviews for the year. So thanks to everyone who's taken a look at my last few reviews. I'm kind of very new at this, and as I say, I do it as a hobby. I'm never intending to make any money out of this. It's just to help fellow collectors get a look at some figures they might not own and might like, just to generate some discussion and sharing the fandom. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks to everyone who subscribed. I'm up to over 100 subscribers now, which I never would have dreamed I'd have got to with my semi-coherent ramblings on plastic toys. But yeah, thanks a lot, and I will see you next time.